Yelid, and a child, Zekunim, of old age. Zekunim, when you put an adjective in the plural, it can be used to express abstract concepts. Like Zakein, we just had up here. See, Zakein is elderly or an old man. And then the plural, Zekunim, means old age. It's this abstract concept of old age. So of old age, Katan. Katan means small or little or like young. And that goes back to Yelid, right? It's not saying his old age. Dr. Rivera says, the words of Judah seems to trigger the soft part in Joseph's heart, in which Joseph finally gave in, yeah, I think so. Well, for one thing, it's hard to play the bad guy, right? It's hard to pretend you're a bad guy when you're not. Who likes to do that role? Everyone wants to be the hero, right? The hero in the story. And so one, he's being a bad guy, and he's seeing that Judah actually is standing up for Benjamin. Imagine how that feels for Joseph. Like, let me think how to put this. Trying to think if I want to share some family experience or not. If it's, yeah, maybe not. Okay, but let's see. Like, say you have a friend or a family member, right? And something happened to you, and nobody stands up for you, right? And now you see the same person who was even the person who hurt you has now changed, and he's standing up for someone else in your family, right? Imagine the emotions that would also trigger in Yosef. Right? The same guy who had the idea to sell him into slavery is now standing up for his younger brother Benjamin, right? Joseph, part of him's got to be feeling, if only you had done that for me. Why didn't you do that for me, right? You did that for my brother, but you didn't do it for me. Ted says, do you think Yehudah recognized by now this is Yosef? I do not. I do not think he recognized him. There are some less trusted midrashic tales that he knew who it was. He knew it was Joseph. And so he's like, when you're going to end this charade, right? Blah, blah, blah. I know who you are, et cetera, et cetera. But not as trustable, right? Later date, later Hebrew, written in much later Hebrew, et cetera. Ted says, knowing for sure Benjamin will not hide and take the cup. Right, also. Yeah, so there's so many things happening. The injustice of it all, of which Joseph is the architect, right? And then seeing the one who had the idea to enslave him, now standing up for someone who's like him, his only other full brother, right? What that must have felt like. The one, who he's giving all these extra portions to, the one whom he loves from the same mother. They really grew up together in the same tent, right? There's like a closer allegiance to them than with his other brothers who were really half brothers, right? The Achiv mate. This is interesting. For the first time, Judah outright either assumes that Joseph is dead or is telling a lie. He says, Ve and Ach, brother, Eve, his. And his brother is, we don't say is in Hebrew usually, mate. So just and his brother, dead. Oops, the reference isn't in there. This is Sarna. Sarna, in his commentary on Genesis, a Jewish scholar, says his brother is dead. In 42 verse 13, they had said, ambiguously referring to Joseph, that, quote, that one is no more, unquote. Now Judah cites Jacob's words of 42 verse 38. Right? He's kind of replaying what his father had said. He obviously cannot tell the truth. Right? If he tells the truth, what's that going to bring them more? He's going to show how evil they are to this ruler of Egypt, right? And he will suspect them even more that Benjamin really stole the goblet from Judah's perspective, right? This is an issue. His lying is taking place in an issue of pekuach nefesh, right? It's really a life risk to save a life. Doc says, yes, Judah sensed of being framed by the man. Oh, very nice. I like that you said the man. That also points another connection to Yeshua HaMashiach's having been framed. Behold the man, Pontius Pilate says. Continue on. Vayivater. So this is nifal from yatar, is the verb yatar. In modern Hebrew, they use this as yoter, which means like excess or still or any more, right? So vayivater means and he remained, or and remains, right? Who remains? Who? That means he. Levado. Levad means alone, and O means him, so by himself. In the 6-day war in Israel, I share this with my intermediate Hebrew students on Yom Rishon. You know what all of Israel was saying? Even the so-called secular Jews across Israel in the Yom Kippur, and pardon me, in the 6-day war, everyone was saying, Lo levadi, Lo levadi, I am not alone, right? And truly, we were not. That's why it's called the 6-day war. We won in 6 days. Just defeated all these enemies around us. 6 days. Taking vast amounts of land, right? Just incredible. Levado, he alone. Le, belongs, or to. It can even mean, we learn from Ugaritic, from. Imo. Im means mother. O is his. Ve, and aviv, his father. Ahevo. Ahev loves, O him. Verse 21. Vatomer. But you said, so now Judah's kind of accusing Joseph a little bit, El unto avadecha, your servants, horiduhu elai, horiduhu, bring, who is him, yarad means down, the yod is gone. Bring him down, meaning from Canaan down to Egypt, elai, unto me. Ve'asima eni alive, ve'asima, that I might set, that I might place, you can even interpret this to give, eni, my eye, right, or my eyesight, al, upon, the vav means him, alive, upon him, that I might set my eyes on him. Now this language is kind of interesting, and this is why Judah is bringing it up. Rashi comments that he uttered the untruth. Oh, I'm sorry, I had one more about the being dead. He uttered this untruth out of fear. He thought, if I tell him that he's alive, he may say, bring him to me. Okay, now back down to here. Setting the eye on him. Sforno comments that, I thought that you meant that, quote, you will personally protect him, right? Because this is kind of a Hebrew idiom, to have your eyes on someone, right? We have this understanding that even in the Birkat HaKohanim, the Aaronic benediction, that it says, we say, may Adonai turn his face towards you, right? Like, may his face be looking at you. The idea is when he's watching those whom he loves, nothing terrible will happen to them, right? And so there's this kind of ongoing tradition in Hebrew language of to have your eyes on someone, from someone who's good. The idea is that it's for their good, right? That you're watching out for them. Although we use it in English also. I'll keep my eye on you, right? Making sure the kid's not going to misbehave or something. So what Judah is insinuating, Sforno says, and he's leaning on Midrash on this too. There's a lot of Midrashic support for this opinion. Instead, you are doing the reverse of keeping your eye on him, and you accuse him of having committed a crime, right? If anything, your guard should have made sure there's nothing weird in his bag before he left. You are looking for ways to detain him. More on that from Targum Yerushalmi. So the Jerusalem Targum translates this into Aramaic, that when Judah is saying, you said you'll put your eye on him, you'll set your eyes on him. In Aramaic, this comes into us, the understanding from the Hebrew. It illuminates the meaning of the Hebrew, and it says, so this is Judah saying what you said. You, Joseph, said, my eyes will be gracious to him. You see? So that's even more, right? And in this part, Judah probably felt relaxed when he saw that Benjamin, in the last week's Torah portion, was given 5 times the portion of food, right, at their meal, right? He was given a lot more stuff, a lot more food to eat. So this seems to be a fulfillment of the promise that I will be gracious to him, right? Graciousness from a ruler should include protection, even from oneself, not to get in trouble in the land. Genesis chapter 44, verse 22. Vanome el Adoni lo yuchal hana'ar la'azov et aviv ve'azav et aviv amet. So, Vanomer, but we said, or you could infer we answered, El unto Adoni, my master. Adon, master is an E, means mine. That's like ko in Tagalog. Master ko. Lo, yuchal. Lo means not. Yuchal, able. Is not able. Hana'ar, the lad. La azov. So this word you probably guys already know from the execution stake. citing Psalm 22, Yeshua says, in Hebrew, he says, Eli, Eli, lama azavtani. My God, why have you azavta, you forsaken or abandoned me? So it's the same verb. He's unable to leave et aviv, his av, his father. Just looking at the comments. I'll check that out in just a sec. Ve'azav et aviv vamet. But if Azav, and if Azav, he abandons et aviv, his av, vamet, then, the vav is a then, mate, he will die. Okay, Ted has a comment. Rabbi Rashi's comment connotes that Judah knows he was talking to Yosef. I don't think so in the previous slide. I don't think. Let's have a look. Let's see. Okay. So here's Rashi's comment. He uttered this untruth out of fear, right? So he's fearful that the ruler's going to, if he finds out that they sold someone into one of their own brothers into slavery, he's going to think badly about them. And then for sure this crime is true too, right? Okay. He thought, if I tell him that he's alive, he may say, bring him to me, you see? So what this is showing, Rashi's saying, if he just says that he's alive and he doesn't admit we sold him into slavery, if he doesn't do Lashon Hara against his brothers and himself, then this leader who's not Joseph will say, okay, to see if you're telling the truth, bring that one to me now. And then what can they do? Then they're in trouble. It's done. Right? You see? Yeah. I see what you were thinking. That maybe it's the other way. Look, there is some midrashic perspective to the comment that he knew that they were suspecting that he's Joseph or something like this. There is some midrashic support. It's just I don't trust those midrashes, right? Because they seem much newer to me, right? I trust the older midrashes better, although sometimes the newer ones, they could be a preservation, right? They just got edited until it was in like a more modern form of Hebrew. Yeah. So I'm not saying that's totally wrong. You could be right in your assumption that he knew it was Joseph. That's totally possible. It's totally possible. Okay. But at least the other brothers seem to not know because they're shocked, right? They're going to be shocked in a moment and they're going to be terrified, whereas they weren't terrified before. The fact that they become terrified when he reveals he's Joseph shows that at least some of the group we can prove conclusively did not know that he was Joseph because they only get scared after he says, Ani Yosef, I'm Joseph. You see? So you might be right. It's possible. It's possible that Judah knew. He figured it out. You know, he's one of the older brothers. Maybe he recognized some feature or something, right? Possible. Yeah, I don't think so, but I'm just siding with some of the midrashes and not the others, right? So you could have something there. Yeah, sure, you're welcome. Okay. Yeah, guys, feel free to chime in like that. It's really nice when we have the back and forth discussion, and very often I learn from you guys, right? The spirit of our kahal that I love so much is that we are a congregation that is all about learning his word, going deeper and deeper. We have so many teachers in our kahal, right? We're so blessed with many teachers, not just myself. And so we learn from each other, and all of the kahal members like to study and have been studying. Many of them for more than 10 years have been studying Torah, right? So it's very probable that you're going to mention something I didn't think about or haven't learned yet. So, or even if I do know it, that I'm not sharing to other people because maybe it's not in the interest of our time. But if you're going to say it, then in my mind, that's the Holy Spirit. He might be stirring you up to say it, right? So be brave and write something. And don't worry, if it's really dumb, I won't read it. Don't worry. All right. So let's look here on this and died, right? But he died. Oh, he might die. Pardon, he might die. Talking about Benjamin now. Okay. So Sarna says his father would die. And this is interesting. Look here, guys. Here's and die. It just says and he would die. But we don't know. Is it Aviv, his father? Or is it the lad himself? The Torah is ambiguous. Well, rather, Judah is ambiguous, the way he's speaking it. And so this is what Sarna is pointing out, that we don't know who's going to die. Is it Benjamin or the father? Right? And actually, a lot of sages, they disagree on this. So here's where Sarna got it from. He looks in the Talmud tractate Yoma, which is about the Day of Atonement. Yoma is Aramaic, Jewish Aramaic for the day. The Ah means the in Aramaic, and Yom is day, just like in Hebrew. So Yoma is the Yom. And that's page 52 on the back side of the page. We see A and B. The Talmud is a very traditional layout that comes to us from there was a big center of Jewish learning in Europe in Lithuania, right? And so It's called the Vilna edition of the Talmud. So most of the Talmuds around the world, they have the same numbering system for the pages. And when you have a page, a daf, it's called in Aramaic a daf. When you first see the page, that's page A, right? Or Aleph, right? You see the back page, that's Beit or B, right? So the front and the back. So this is the general way to reference. In modern times, they've even started referencing paragraphs, so it's easier to find something. You have to read through the whole page to find what the source is saying. So sometimes they'll be really nice, and they'll say like 52b, colon, and they'll say like 7, meaning paragraph 7, right? So in case you're wondering, those of you who are maybe interested to get into studying the Talmud, if you want to get into the Talmud, I recommend that you start with Tractate Berachot. Berachot, blessings. Berachot is when someone wants to become a rabbi, they have to basically prove competence in Berachot, right, in that tractate. So someone with the title rabbi, it means they know Berachot, okay? They might not know any of the rest of the Talmud well at all, right, but they at least know Berachot. And then someone who knows all the tractates, same. They're just called rabbi. There's no senior rabbi or bishop rabbi or pope rabbi or anything like that, right? Everyone's just rabbi, right? So you really don't know the level of the knowledge. Are they familiar with all the tractates? Do they know Gittin? Do they know Ketuvot, etc.? Or are they just really good at Berachot? Like all rabbis should be good with Berachot, yeah? So, because Berachot is arguably the most important. That means blessings. The blessings, how we bless Adonai, when we can say the Shema, when it's not permissible to say the Shema, like when you should pray, right? Like we learn from Berachot that if you see a piece of feces, dog feces on the ground and you're outside, you're not supposed to pray while you see that thing, right? Although there's an argument, maybe it's if it's 8 feet away, you can pray. If it's closer, you can't. If you smell it, you definitely can't pray, right? So you're not supposed to bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu while you're experiencing some negative sensation, like smell or something like this, right? So, or sight, if you're seeing it also, right? Because you don't want to conflate something like that with the holy, yeah. So, and there's all there's all kinds of talks about demons and where demons hang out and how to avoid them and how to deal with them, and a lot of important stuff is in Berachot. So, if you're curious about the Talmud, you can get started. You can go to sefaria.org and pull up Talmud, and they have for free the Rabbi Steinsaltz translation from the Wolfenson Talmud. And Steinsaltz, great scholar, Orthodox rabbi who also has degrees in science and other stuff like this, and just really, really amazing. He translated the entire Talmud into modern Hebrew, and then later he went back and he translated into English. So you can see the Hebrew text and the Aramaic commentary, and he translates that into English. It's really nice. So if you're curious, start Berachot. You can start reading the Berachot. You might like it. Not to replace your Bible study. This is in support of, yeah? Okay, so this ambiguity is noted in Talmud Tractate Yoma, page 52b, so backside of the page. Now the Targums, those are the Aramaic translations of the Torah, and Rashi, and the Rambam, they understand that it's Benjamin who will die. Okay, so these guys, these big heavy hitters, all say that it's Benjamin who would die. Isn't it interesting? It seems like the text is assuming the father, right? If he gets this other hit, that he's going to die, right? But saying Benjamin would die. The Rashbam, Ibn Ezra, the Bechor Shor, and Shadal, also very heavy hitters, they take the subject to be the father. I think it's about the father. That's my opinion too. But there's a lot of heavy hitters on the other side, so you can see it both ways. Sforno comments, from the moment he will have left his father, he will pine for his father and become sick or die. Right? Like some kids, they really, really need their parents. I remember I used to have a friend named Yoni, short for Yonatan. And Yoni was a real mama's boy, right? He had a birth defect, and I won't say exactly what the birth defect was in case somebody might identify him somewhere. He had a birth defect, and I think that kind of affected his psyche. But a really clever kid, really smart. He learned Hebrew really well. Was teaching Hebrew, and he really excelled in his Jewish studies. Messianic boy, and he got accepted to Yeshiva University in New York. It's a very good university, Jewish university, and it's a religious university, so you get to study. You can study whatever you want. You can get a math degree, but you also get a lot of religious learning, right? And he got a scholarship, from the Bill Gates Foundation. He's covered, right? So it's from a poor family, right? Poor Sephardic family, and so to see him off, I flew up with his brother and someone else. We flew up to kind of see him off because he had never been away from home. He's so used to being around his parents all the time. we went with him. We went to the dormitory. We met his roommate. Seemed cool. His roommate had techelet, and we're all wearing techelet too, because usually Messianics have the blue fringe, right? And Orthodox, it's a mix. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, right? His roommate had techelet. We're like, oh, Yoni, how cool! Your roommate's wearing techelet. Gave the guy a high five. Cool, little Orthodox kid. And anyway, time to say goodbye. His suitcases are all in. We prayed for him. You could do really great. Look at this amazing opportunity Hashem has given to you. Man, I wish I had gone here. You're going to learn so much. You're going to blow us away with your Yiddishkeit afterwards. And then we left. Oh, I stayed. I stayed a bit longer. That's right. I stayed because I wanted to roll around, and I love New York. I want to see some things, and stuff. And so I stayed, but his brother and the other fella went, and they're on the plane, and his brother calls me. He says, Yoni's here with me on the plane. I said, what? What are you talking about? He said, he refuses to stay. He doesn't want to be there. He was scared. And nothing, I talked to him on the phone. I said, look, dude, I'm going to be really ticked at you. You got to do this. It's time to stand up. Time to be a man. You're already 18. Come on, let's do it. You'll be fine. Look, and I promised him, I said, if you get lonely, you need somebody, I will, I had a lot of money back then. So I said, I'll fly up to New York. You just give me a day's notice. I'll get a ticket. I'll come see you. We'll hang for a while. No. Nothing we said to him would convince him to stay. That was just it. He's just not going to stay. He was terrified because he had been raised with what psychologists call the devouring mother, right? He'd been so babied his whole life and so protected that he ended up missing this wonderful opportunity, free education at Yeshiva University. And and so when I read this comment from Sorno, and he's not the only one who says this, that the boy might die pining away for his father, I think of my friend Jonathan, who this happened actually to him with his mother, right? He might have very well, his family afterwards like, look, you really just need to be here. Maybe it's really the right thing. And who knows, maybe it was right. But to me, as someone who moved out when I was 16, I couldn't see it that way. I couldn't see it as anything other than just weakness that's going to destroy his possibilities, right? And the chance to learn so much, So, yeah, there are some people who are like this. They're just they need their parents so much that it's hard for them to break away. Tet says, Rabbi, verse 22 in the King James verse defines it as his father would die. But with the Hebrew Valmet, this is not definite. Yeah, exactly. They are doing an interpretation there, right? So remember, Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan says all translation is commentary. Even the King James, very often. Now, to be fair, King James, they try to be fairly true to the original Hebrew, right? I mean, they try to. Even with tenses sometimes. Like the prophet is prophesying in the past tense. King James will be in the past tense, right? And I know because when I was discipled for a year and a half by Baptists, right? Actually, the guy wasn't Baptist, but it was at a Baptist church. Southern Baptist, very strict, no dance, no drink, all that kind of stuff. And in my discipleship, I never was baptized with them, though. I didn't think it was right for me. But, going through, for a year and a half, we did a full discipleship program going through the Bible, and it was King James. And for me, I didn't learn much about the Bible. What I did learn was how to understand Victorian English. So I think King James is a terrible translation to use, not because they weren't true to the text as much as they could be, right? Many places they're very true. Sometimes you find something like here, you said they're assuming it's the father, right? He would die, right? But in other places, it's just that the language has changed, right? I don't think it's smart to use King James today if you are not very, very certain that you know what Victorian English means, right? There's a great example given by the Hebrew Christian Dr. Michael Brown about problems with King James, right? He's got a whole YouTube spiel on it if you look sometimes where he picked out some of the translational issues, right? But aside from that, I think mostly it's a good translation. But one point that he makes is the language is totally different today. So an example I love to use that Dr. Brown mentions is you must study to be silent, right? Study to be silent. Really? So, I got to get a stack of books and I'm reading them. How do I be silent? When really in Victorian English, that just meant try. Try to be silent, right? Discipline yourself to be silent, something like that. Like how the musar of silence, you see. So there's lots of stuff like that. And so especially when I see Filipino preachers reading from the King James. I'm like, and I met with a bishop here one time. One of my Hebrew students wanted me to talk to him about the problems with King James translation, right? And how oftentimes it is wrong compared to the Hebrew, right? As are all translations. They have their own worldview that they're pushing. But I don't understand that. Why, when English isn't even your native language, would you try to use English from 400 years ago? And even the King James we're reading isn't the original King James. The original 1611 King James is just a horror to read. It's like a horror show. And King James isn't even King James. It's really the Wycliffe translation in the I think Tyndale translation. Which, if you look at it, there's huge chunks that they just stole from these martyrs who had translated part of the Bible into English, right? So, it's not like it's for those people that say it was authorized by the king or something. No, it's mostly plagiarized from translations that came before it. Dr. Lera says, I think Jacob is more attached to Benjamin rather than Benjamin to Jacob. That could very well be. Yeah. And he goes on to say Benjamin. Oh, here's a quote from NASB 1995, which says, Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey, and in the evening he divides the spoil. Genesis 49, verse 27. Well, we certainly see this fulfilled prophetically, even in a negative sense, in the book of Judges, right? With the devouring that happens from the tribe of Benjamin when they had become utterly wicked. Okay, reading on. Verse 23, Vatomer el avadecha, im lo yered achichem, hakaton itechem, lo tosifu lirot panai. So starting over, Vatomer, but you said, El, unto avadecha, your servants, im lo, if not, yered, will come down, achichem, hakaton, your younger brother, itechem, with you all, lo, shall not, tosifun, and this noon is like an exclamation point. Tosifu means the same thing. You will not, tosifun, you will not again lirot, gaze or look or see, panai, my panim. The Bechor Shor comments, what is it that makes you need to see this particular boy? Everything points to the fact, this is why Jude is repeating it, okay? This is what Bechor Shor is saying, that you set up this incident because you want to keep the boy here. And we have no idea why. This is coming from the Bechor Shor, right? So according to this tradition, Judah doesn't know, right? He doesn't know that it's Yosef. Well, Dr. Vera comments that that verse implies that Benjamin is quite independent by this time from Jacob. Maybe, because the other thing we got to keep in mind, Doc, that's the blessing that is given that comes later, right? This blessing. It's not saying Benjamin was, right, a ravenous wolf. It's going to say Benjamin is, right? Ted says Benjamin and Yosef are brothers. Yeah, they're complete brothers because they have the same mother, right? Of the four mothers of Israel, they have the same one, Rachel. Okay. Any other comments or questions before I change slides? All right. Continue on. I'm going to speed it up a bit with several verses at once. This is a screenshot from my book with my translation on the side. I reserve the right to translate slightly differently now. All right, so okay, so one more comment on the